You know that moment when you're walking a property and something just clicks? You see what could be. That's what happened to Sylvia and Africa, two flippers who stumbled across a subdivided lot in Midtown Sacramento and said, "Why not us?" This episode isn't about theory. It's about what it really takes to go from flipping to building, and how they made the leap without millions, without experience, and with all the self-doubt that comes with doing something for the first time.
To give a quick background, Africa and I were both aspired local developers. So Africa, she's a very experienced fix and flipper who have more than 10 years of flipping in both locally in Greater Bay Area, Oakland, Sacramento, as well as internationally in Spain. And my background comes from both tech, long-term rental, mid-term rental, and BRRRR. And we met and really were collaborating on starting with flip projects. And then we're both kind of looking into new devs, but since we haven't done it yet, but we figured the scope would be similar to flips. But what really have made us push for it was this one flip where when we were walking through the property and talking with the seller, there's a Victorian house in the front of the lot. And when we walk to the backyard, we see all this space. So it's one of those long lots in the Midtown Sacramento area, which is kind of general where at the time, this is from probably 200 years ago where most of these lots are very long on the strip and everyone has a really huge yard. But nowadays, a lot of times people don't utilize that yard space. So we just pop the question to the seller and ask, does it come with this yard space? And actually, to our surprise, he is not selling that yard space. He is doing it separately. So at the time, he has actually already subdivided this long lot into 3 different lots. The first one contains the Victorian house, whom he's trying to sell to us as the flippers. And he actually wasn't even going to mention the backyard space because he's reserving those subdivided lots for developers. And at the time, that light bulb just came off in our head because this is perfect opportunity for us to kind of put our hands in and get started on a project.
Here's the first lesson. Developers see what others miss. The seller didn't even offer them the lots. He assumed they weren't interested because they looked like flippers. This is why we say, if you're going to become a developer, start calling yourself one. The way you show up shapes the opportunities you get access to. Identity comes before action.
So we actually come up with an agreement and the seller agreed to actually do seller financing with us. So we got a really good term and we started chatting with the architects and interviewing them. And the current plan is to build 2 side-by-side townhouses ranging from between 15 to 1,800 square feet. They're going to be 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom with a 1-car garage. And we purchased a lot for $300K. Our rehab cost is around $700K. And so we're targeting to sell each of them around $5K. The timeline is going to be around roughly 1 year, 2 months left for entitlements, roughly 7 months for construction, and 3 months for marketing and selling the units.
That's awesome. So what was the conversation like with the seller when you went from, hey, yeah, we're flippers, but you saw opportunity? What was that conversation and process like to where they were willing to sell the extra lots instead of develop it themselves?
Well, they were willing to sell it. He just didn't imagine that I guess we don't look like developers. I don't know what developers look like, but he wasn't going to bother to mention it to us. And so, yeah, so he was going to sell it. He just wasn't, he wasn't going to mention it to us because he had put us on that box of the flippers, right? And so it shows the importance of, if you're ready to do this and you're going to become a developer, start calling yourself a developer and embodying that and not being like, oh, I want to be a developer. I don't know. Because, he wasn't going to mention it because we also didn't say that we are developers because we had the imposter syndrome still, like, are we developers?
Every time you do something new, you're going to have imposter syndrome because you haven't figured it out yet. You see other people doing it, but you're like, I haven't. So as you guys went, okay, maybe internally, what was there a conversation between you two going, wait, we've been talking about development. Let's put the developer hat on. And what was that confidence boost or just what was that motivation or drive inside of you guys to say, let's at least try?
Yeah. So at the time we were mostly working on flipping projects and, to Africa, this is like just snap of the finger. It's at all of the process, all the teams are there and the process are there. So everything is very quick and smooth. Our partnership was going well, and we were ready to just take on something new and open up our scope. That's why this opportunity just came at the right time, because previously, I think if we're just working separately alone, like as lonely wolf developers, it would have been, I think it would be bigger of a mental challenge, because you don't have as much of a support group. But when we combine our efforts together and really bounce our ideas off, so when we talk about that project, we like just give each other confidence to be able to support each other. And like, we don't know what the lawyer process is going to be like, what are the legal documents that are needed to raise a bigger chunk of lump sum from investors. Like, how are we going to be able to tackle that? I'm just really separating the responsibility. So when we have like 2-person as a team, I think that just give us the confidence to pull the plug.
Yes.
Totally.
And to add to that, I feel like a lot of people can relate to this. You can sit on analysis paralysis for a very long time, and at some point you realize, you know what am I waiting for? I have all the information. I have talked to 1,000 developers. Like, literally, we're part of a investor community where there are other developers, and I think I literally talked to all of them, several times, have gone to the planning department 1,000 times, you have done all the research you could do. And at some point it's like, what am I waiting for? And especially if the opportunity is right there. I think another motivator was the fact that this is bite sized. This is really small. We're talking about 2 units. We're not going into something super large. For me specifically, I did have the confidence from, I think, in over analyzing this for a very, very long time. We're talking about years. And I had already done projects that are pretty much new construction, large additions, conversions from commercial to residential, in a lot of, technically new construction, not ground up. And it just kind of felt like, you know what, I'm ready. Like, it just fell on our lap, and it was just the right moment. And I think for both of us to be at a point where, we were both just kind of at the right mindset, that's what allowed it to happen. I feel like if one of us was still not ready, we will have probably backed out. Yeah.
Love that. So as you guys were going through the process, maybe can you explain some of the city process so far and what that looked like? Because now you're getting some design team people together and working with the city and permitting, to where maybe what challenges came up or you're still working through?
Yes. The first challenge that we faced was the fact that when we talked to him, he said, well, this is already subdivided. This is already done. And he was like, oh, okay, cool. We don't have to deal with that part. And that wasn't fully done. Like, he had like the tentative map approved and recorded. He had like a lot of the steps, that there was a little bit still there to do. We didn't have the APN number issued yet. So we kind of had to be like involved with that part, but that was good for us, because it's like, okay, well, now we know, because that is something that we're going to need to learn eventually anyway. So that was the challenge, but it was good because it was a learning opportunity. The second challenge that we faced was the fact that we gave too much trust to the architect, and we just kind of let him do and let him be with fix and flips. I've been doing it for so many years. I will never do that. And I think it was the lack of confidence. I don't know why. You just kind of feel like, I guess he knows better. It's like, I will never do that with a fix and flip. But with this, it was like, okay, well, I guess you're just going to let us know. It's like, yeah. And it's like, man, of course, he was dragging his feet. There was a lot of things that we were kept in the dark about, and we were able to navigate that and fix it by saying, okay, at some point we gave him a lot of time. We have been going through the entitlement process it's going to be a year as of August, and it doesn't have to be a year. In Sacramento, you could get them in half that time or less. And we had to understand why it took so long. What is it that he was missing? Get ourselves involved, get ourselves access to the portal, be CC'd on the emails, present ourselves to the reviewer and say, hey, we're the owners of this project. We want to be included in all communications, and basically give him an ultimatum, say, hey, we need to be in the loop with everything. We want to know everything. yeah, it's so that has changed, but that was it was a challenge.
It was helpful that we brought this issue to attention in our weekly mastermind group, and someone was actually able to also give an opinion because we were deciding whether or not it was common for us to be hands off and just have the architect take the lead, or we do some sort of percentage of visibility, and that also give us the confidence of asking them, hey, we actually should have full visibility into the portal, into the email chain, so that we're understanding what your interaction is, because there's usually a deadline for the city when they're interacting on the email back and forth. They have a deadline to respond to your email, and if you miss that timeline, then you're actually kicked back all the way to the end of the queue. So I think that actually also happened with the architect a few times. He dropped the ball, and we're only able to pick up on that signal because Africa was added into the portal and see the email chain.
Yeah, it's a very good point. We actually caught it. He wasn't going to mention it, but we caught it because after we got access, I went back and I started to see all the conversations because I wanted to just understand like what has been happening. Like, why are we waiting this long? I honestly was like, is the plumbing department so off on their timelines that they're advertising something and it's just it's double the time? And we saw a couple of times where they give you a certain amount of time to respond to whatever revisions, and he went outside that time, and then they just kind of kicked you out and they just tag it as inactivity, close, sort of like resubmit the whole thing and then go back to the line, and that it's unfortunate, but now we know.
Yeah, so many good lessons learned. Let's talk entitlement delays. This part hits home, and I unfortunately see this far too often. It's why we say nobody cares about your project as much as you do. The architect dropped the ball. Emails were missed. Timelines were blown. But here's what Sylvia and Africa did right. They received feedback from their community, got access to the city portal, started getting CC'd on the emails, and took control back of their project. If you're managing a project, you can't afford to be passive. Being hands-off in development doesn't work. Access equals power. Visibility equals control. If you're new, that's not a liability. That's actually your advantage because you'll ask the questions the pros stopped asking years ago. And sometimes asking a few more questions is all it takes to keep your project on track.
Mm-hmm. I think another interesting topic that could be worthy to mention here is our pursuit on the just properly structuring the deal legally so that we're amply protecting our investors as well as us as the active equity partners. Previously, our deal sizes are a lot smaller for fix and flips. Our raise size are smaller, our timeline's quicker. But now that with the new developments, we are looking at raising almost $500,000 from multiple private lenders or passive investors. We are actually just really looking to just beef up our structure. There's a different set of guidelines that we'll need to look into being uphold ourselves to, which I feel that a lot of times some of the new developers, they may not necessarily know that they're stepping into a different SEC regulation zone when they're performing bigger projects. So we actually caught that, and we have been interviewing a lot of different lawyers, so actually one of the things that blockers that we're trying to push through right now is that even after interviewing the lawyers, everyone says kind of propose different guidelines, and no one says one thing. So you actually, as the developers, have to really figure out who is just trying to upsell you versus who is working with smaller scale boutique developers and understanding the scope of your project, which is bigger than a flip but smaller than a 5-year apartment syndication, right? So who can work with you at the right price range and with the right expertise, and then also can accommodate your timeline, has been something that we've been really trying to drive at right now. And luckily we have had a really good community and connections.
Hey, can we chat for a second? Since you're listening to this podcast, you're already thinking like a developer. You see the potential in your community. and you're ready to do more than just watch from the sidelines. That's exactly why we created the Local Developer Vault. It's a free resource full of tools, templates, and trainings to help you take action. And here's the best part. When you sign up, you'll also get access to our local real estate developer community. It's full of people just like you who are making real things happen in their neighborhoods. So don't just listen to the stories. Become the next one that we spotlight on our show. The link in the show notes to unlock the vault and join our movement.
So even though we had a very experienced lawyer that we really enjoyed chatting with that fell through, we're able to get connected to other people in order to get the set of legal documents ready before our refinance timeline.
Very key point. Very key point. Did you find, was it just leveraging your network to find different attorneys to speak with about how to structure it, or was it Google searches or a combination of all of that? And when you did find them, how did you know the questions asked to kind of vet through that process?
I think it was key, definitely reaching out to our community. It was also the easiest route. For yesterday we had a meeting and we were thinking about something else that we need, and we're just gonna ask the community first. You know that there are people that someone has already tried before and they have an experience, so that was definitely easier. As for the questions, I think both Sylvia and I are just really curious people, and so we're just not afraid to ask questions. We don't we're just basically not afraid to be vulnerable and show them that, hey, you know what, we are new to this structure and why this one versus this one, and we kind of bring up anything that someone else said, and it's like, hey, different lawyer said this, like, how come this, how come that? So we're just kind of bombard them. Maybe from their point of view, it's like a little bit messy and too much, but yeah, literally emails and emails of questions until we feel like we have all the information and we feel comfortable. Like we had a couple lawyers give us, their opinion with authority of like, it needs to be this way. And we were just kind of like, no, we don't think so. We don't know, but we don't think so. Let's just keep asking. And and then we finally found one that, sounded right, but unfortunately that fell through. So yeah, it's been a little bit of a back and forth on that.
Yeah. So I definitely agree with Africa that we're trying to go for either firms or connections that they have previously worked with and can vouch for. I think that is the best. And then regarding the questions, I feel that one is that, especially with larger firms, a lot of times the first person that you talk to are the salesperson. So you really need to cross that salesperson and talk to the actual person who is like knowledgeable and who's actually drafting everyone's doc. And then just kind of, because usually there's a few ways to approach this, right? Like, there's the JV partnership, there is a syndication, there is funds, many different ways that you can structure a raise. And are they just trying to sell you what they're good at, what like they have rinse and repeat? Or do they actually understand your case? Can they work with you as independent small scale independent developers? And do they understand the difference between debt versus equity, passive versus active, and all the roles and the right set of documentations that are needed to cover these cases, like understanding our risk tolerances? Because like I said previously, our structure should be simpler than some of the apartment syndication deals. What we're offering our investors are currently mostly debt or interest. And so like just having those kind of conversation and see if those people can understand and actually work with you is crucial. Then they're just trying to give you like a prompted answer and just trying to sell you something that you don't need.
This is where things get real. Structuring the deal legally. When your raise jumps from $50K to $500,000, you're in a different arena. SEC rules, investor protections, all the legal scaffolding that holds a deal together. Most flippers never touch this. But Africa and Sylvia didn't fake it. They asked smart questions, admitted what they didn't know, and pushed past the salesy noise to find the actual advisors who understood small-scale development. And that's what we need more of. Emerging developers willing to get uncomfortable, learn the structure behind the money, and build the muscle it takes to protect the deal and the people in it. So what do you guys see as your next maybe 2 or 3 steps for where you're at in the process and what you see next going forward?
So we're very excited because we have all our self-commitments in terms of the actual funding that we need. It was a blessing in disguise to have all this time through the delays caused by our architect, but it allowed us to really take our time structuring everything and planning everything and then reaching out to our potential lenders, private lenders. So we're excited because we're ready to go. We have our self commitments. We just need to finalize those legal docs. So that's the first tangible step. We just really need to tie that knot and just get that signed, so that we have the actual structure. The second one is we are refinancing the seller financing loan. We actually, it's been a year since we met this person, because we purchased the other property from him as well. We did get to establish a relationship, and he's actually pretty cool and pretty okay with our delays. And we're the ones that want to make sure that, we don't ask for an extension. We want to uphold our word. We told him 1 year, and it's 1 year. We want to go ahead and do that refi. So yeah, the next tangible step is that refi, refinance him out, get him paid, and move on to our construction loan. And we pretty much shovel ready. Basically, once that ends, it's like the action is going to start, Actually, hopefully we can report back to you. But yeah, we'll be pretty much ready to start. We were just looking at the vacant lot yesterday. It's full of weeds, and we're like, should we take out the weeds? We're about to come in here. But yeah, it's pretty exciting.
And you guys have already dropped so many great nuggets. I love this. Is there anything else in closing on this property that you would say a lesson learned, another tactical tip that you haven't already dropped?
I think this may not pertain to everyone's case, but because in our case, we do have a flip in the front house. One of the lessons that we have learned is that we're aiming to sell this flip before we start doing any development in the back because of noise and construction. But one of the issues that we didn't catch up front is that when we're doing open house and bringing in other real estate agents and their clients, we couldn't control the conversation of what the agents told the clients. So when they walk to the second floor balcony and see that there's another lot with some weeds in there, their first question is, what are people going to do in a back lot? I think that the agents, they could have said something along the lines of there's going to be a construction going on there, and actually, unfortunately, turn away a lot of potential buyers. This is something that we're talking about, like some plan Bs on, like if we can hold this property. We're still trying to push through and see if we can do anything to be able to get this property out there, because it's a perfectly good flip. It's beautifully done. It has like a beautiful space, and it's on a great street. But it's just when you're walking into the back lot and when you're walking onto the second balcony and you look at that back lot, it's like, I'm supposed to be having a barbecue here with a cup of coffee in my hand, and this is what I'm seeing. So, and of course, like, I understand buyers, they wouldn't want to be dealing with noises for like potentially dealing with noises for the foreseeable next year. So we have a backup plan in mind to be able to hold this flip if needed until the construction is done, and try to offload it in another year if needed.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that. So if it happens to coincide that you're looking at a vacant lot and you're going to subdivide, and part of that is going to be a flip, just keep in mind that your timeline may not end up being your timeline. Again, we think, a lot of it could have been avoided. We thought by this time, when the flip goes live to the MLS, we'll have a lot of the construction undergoing, so that, you could say to the buyers, oh, it's just like 6 more months or whatever. Right now, it's like, you can't say that, like, literally we haven't started. So they're staring at it, so they're thinking, oh man, it's going to be a whole year of, construction. Some of them probably think it's 2 years because, they don't know. So that's really a good one.
Here's the part most people overlook. The future phases of your project can impact what you're trying to finish right now. Sylvia and Africa were flipping the front house, but every buyer who toured it saw the empty, weedy lot out back and walked away. The project on paper made sense, but perception killed that momentum. So here's the takeaway. When you're working with subdivided parcels, sequencing matters. You can't just think about the cost or construction and how long it's going to take you. You have to also think like a marketer, getting your entitlements early, closing strategically, rehab and build in a rhythm that tells a story, one that makes the buyers feel excited, not uncertain. And if the timing's off, maybe renting and holding until you're done is the better path forward. Because in development, timing isn't just about your budget. It's about the story you're telling the market.
And the second one is because a lot of these deals, if it's really small and you're going into seller financing, just kind of have your finance plan, from the beginning. I think we're lucky that we had that. We kind of knew, regardless of the delay, we kind of knew what we were doing. Said, okay, we're going to take advantage of the seller financing while we're waiting for entitlements. Because if we were to bring investors at the very beginning, imagine that. Right now, those investors will have been waiting for a year, and for us to have to be explaining, well, our architect, and without really knowing what you're saying, So our plan was, let's take advantage of the seller financing for that year. Let's get entitlements, and then let's bring the investors in when we're ready to go into construction. So that is, they're coming in at the right time when actual action is happening, and it's easier to, keep them updated and keep them excited about the project. So that's the other thing. Just kind of think about that, how you're going to structure the financing if you're raising money for the project.
If you take one thing from this minisode, let it be this. You don't have to know everything to get started. You just have to care enough to figure it out. Sylvia and Africa didn't wait for permission. They stepped up, made mistakes, course corrected, and kept moving. That's what separates dreamers from doers in this game. They didn't have a background in development. They had a background in action. And if you're sitting on a flip, a backyard, a conversation with a seller that feels like more, that just might be your starting line. If this minisode lit a fire in you, hit subscribe to the Local Real Estate Developer Podcast, where we share real, unpolished stories from people building in places they call home. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify, and come build with us.